He's Vice President of Legal Affairs at Landmark Legal Foundation, and I have him back all the time because I find him to be brilliant. He probably thinks I'm a dumb blonde, but either way, he knows stuff. Mike O'Neill is here. We're going to talk about the War Power Act and executive orders and everything else we can think of. Hi, Mike.
Hey, Fawn. It's always a pleasure to be with you.
Thank you, man. So, Landmark Legal Foundation, let's tell people what that is off the cuff, because a lot of people ask after you're on.
Yeah, Landmark Legal Foundation is a national public interest law firm. We have offices outside of Washington, D.C. and Kansas City, Missouri. We advocate for freedom, limited government. We are pro-Constitution. We fight against tyranny and fight the liberal Marxists who are trying to take over our country.
Yeah, kind of like they're almost going to do. See, if there ever was a good example of don't have ranked choice voting, it was New York City. That was
exactly.
That was the corn coming to the top of the kettle right there. All right.
Oh boy, they're in for a heck of a next couple of years here. We'll see what happens. But buckle up if you're in New York. That's
even
for
the rats are moving to Florida. All right. So the War Powers Act. This Jasmine Crockett chick, with her profanity and her inability to understand how to be somebody to be proud of who came out of Texas. I don't know what's wrong with this chick, but she just feels like everything is up to her. She really believes she's running this country. I don't know what to say, but President Trump had every right to do what he did.
Absolutely. And it's almost a good thing when Jasmine Crockett
Oh no, please don't go away.
Marxist leftist true colors.
Yeah.
And so, of course, President Trump was acting completely within his authority under the War Powers Act when he executed the strikes on Iran. The two operative provisions of the War Powers Act are, number one, the president is obligated to inform Congress within 48 hours of a military action. And number two, if the military action exceeds 60 days, then the president has to receive some sort of approval for authorization from Congress for that military action. Well, number one, of course, the president did inform Congress and inform the public. Everybody knew about the strikes on Iran shortly after they occurred. And number two, this is an isolated single strike that the president knew exactly what was going to do. This is not an ongoing operation. This is not like what happened with Serbia back in the 90s or when Iraq with the no-fly zone and the ongoing military operations. This was a singular strategic attack that was designed to destroy and decimate Iran's ability to build nuclear.
Mike's phone is cutting out.
And individuals who claim otherwise are just wrong.
Yeah, they are wrong. And I love that he flanked him too. That's so funny to me. They were looking at Guam and he's like, peekaboo.
Right.
You know, the fact that he did this was because, you know, even Iran admitted it. They said Israel wouldn't exist today if Trump hadn't stepped in. I mean, what does that tell you? He had to do it.
Right, absolutely. And it brought in, think of the large-scale benefits here. He accomplished in one single strike, or the military. I mean, let's give credit where credit is due.
They're from Missouri. From Whiteman Air Force Base in Missouri. Thank you very much. Yes.
Which is incredible. An 18-hour flight back. It's incredible that stealth planes can take off from the middle of our country, fly 18 hours, execute this strike, turn around, and then come back and land and be home for dinner. All in one, a little more than 36 hours or a day and a half.
Yeah.
It's absolutely astounding. But what he did, what the administration did and the military did was accomplished what 20 years of foreign policy was unable to accomplish. I mean, keep in mind, now you're not going to convince me that Barack Obama was serious about addressing the nuclear proliferation with Iran, because of course he paid them off. But you saw other presidents make efforts to do this. But with one fell swoop, one decisive presidential action, President Trump fixed the problem.
Yeah.
And now there's an opportunity in the Middle East for a greater peace accord. You see Iran's there's this tenuous ceasefire that we hope all holds, but it looks like that this is the cessation of hostilities has occurred, and there is a real opportunity now for Iran to actually join the community of nations and not become a proto-terrorist, a mega agitator in the region, and actually start to contribute to the world.
Well, the money Obama sent over on the plane could have very easily been what paid for them to train to go into Israel on that fatal day, October 7th. So I really feel like he was part of the problem. And we don't just send our enemies planes full of money. That's ridiculous. So This president had these planes go in. And again, they were laser focused on targets that were in 3 specific areas about the size of a small house. Some said washing machine. But there were all over social media people saying that he blew up Iran, he nuked Iran. Everybody was freaking out. CNN was flat out lying about what happened over there. It just wasn't. It wasn't that. We were the only ones with the bunker busters who could have pulled this off. And if he hadn't, Israel might not be here by next year.
Exactly, and we know this had to occur. It's been a stated position in the United States for decades that Iran could not obtain functional nuclear weapons, and this was we could not tolerate an Iranian regime, this Islamist radical regime with nuclear weapons. This was an intolerable situation that had to be addressed, and God bless Israel. They've done everything within their capacity to do, but they reached a point where there was no way to destroy and decimate these underground facilities that Iran had spent decades constructing, and so that's why the United States had to step in and do what it did. Now, what's an important aspect here, and this is the need for it, is the operational secrecy that was maintained throughout this, and that's really what the president was doing here, and this is why it's imperative that he has such authority under our Constitution to protect the American people and to actually function as commander-in-chief. He needs to be able to have that authority and to maintain secrecy so that these operations aren't jeopardized. And that's what you saw. The success can be tied to the fact that you didn't have to loop in Jasmine Crockett or AOC or, God forbid, any of those other folks upon Capitol Hill who are more likely to leak it. Yeah. So, again, a win for the administration, a win for the American people, I think a win for the world. And so anybody who, I think when you see these arguments that he was violating the War Powers Act, that's just political theater. There's not going to be any attempts to file any kind of lawsuits or anything like that. It's just simply the reflexive actions of the left when they decide they want to oppose anything Donald Trump does.
Well, they don't understand the Constitution or the president's ability to do what he can do. I think Trump has surrounded himself with people who are tight-lipped on purpose because his last administration was as leaky as it was leaky. And he's doing exactly what he said he was going to do. And even over 100, I think it was 116 Democrats, when they put up the impeachment articles, they voted no because they knew that he wasn't in the wrong on this.
Absolutely. And again, that's just more political theater. And what's unfortunate here is the efforts to weaponize and delegitimize the impeachment power, right? I believe that the impeachment power is a necessary power that Congress retains. For example, we know that there's a judge in Massachusetts who's currently evading and violating Supreme Court orders in deportation cases, directly violating orders from the United States Supreme Court. Now, I think that is the case, and again, I reluctantly say this because I just don't want to be somebody who runs to the well of impeachment whenever something doesn't go their way. But I think that is a case where Congress should sincerely consider impeaching a federal judge, and they retain that power. And when you have the left and you have those idiots in Congress decide that they're going to impeach the president for virtually any executive action that he takes, you completely delegitimize in the eyes of the American people that important power that Congress retains.
So in the 3 minutes or almost 4 minutes that we have left, where are we with the executive order challenges?
Yeah.
There are a lot.
They're all over the place. And so certain ones we're seeing a little bit of movement on. I think generally speaking, we're poised to say in incidences where the president is handling personnel matters, management matters, terminating employees, I think generally speaking, he's going to come out of this with that power intact, and the courts are going to affirm that and say, look, you have the power to govern the executive branch as you see fit. Immigration is honestly fun. Immigration is all over the place. You'll see cases, again, as I talk about, you'll see the Supreme Court in a 6-3 decision staying in order, saying the president has the power to deport these bad guys. And again, these are some of the worst folks. These aren't your garden variety immigration cases.
Right.
These individuals, that case that got into the Supreme Court earlier this week, that was the 6-3 decision, these were arsonists, rapists, child rapists, really bad guys. And this was, again, the presidential power to deport these individuals to third-party country. Supreme Court said, yeah, you could do that for right now, but again, this Massachusetts judge is fighting that order from the Supreme Court. Therefore, I go to the impeachment power. So you're seeing them kind of all over the place. The Department of Education, the DEI removal, the defunding of education institutions, that's under a stay right now. That's going to be litigated. So some wins, some losses. Again, we're going to have to see how this passes out. One last thing before I have to sign off is the Supreme Court is poised to drop an opinion about the universal injunctions. That's the birthright citizenship case that's going to be probably the last decision that's released by the Supreme Court this term. And again, we know that's coming up in the next week or so. So we are hopefully going to see some reining in of the district court's powers to issue those universal injunctions in the next week.
Yeah, that one's going to be sticky because if you're born in the United States, you are an American. But if they got here just in time to crap you out so you could say I'm an American, that's a problem. That's an intentional...
Yeah, and I don't yeah, that one might not be a substantive decision on that particular issue. That wasn't fully briefed. That was, and again, I'm not saying that that's not an important issue to talk about. I'm simply saying that was expedited up to the court to decide the universal injunction power. So the court might telegraph or say what they're going to their position on birthright citizenship. I think your position is absolutely right, Fawn. But also the important thing to take away from that case is whether these district courts have the power to issue universal injunctions. And I think the court's going to hopefully rein them in on that.
I do want to ask you, though, about gay people being able to serve in the military. I think that one's stupid.
Yeah.
I think that's stupid.
Yeah. Okay.
If they want to serve, let them serve.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think so. I think what we're talking about here is I don't think gay people per se. I think isn't it transgender? Isn't that the issue that's specifically?
Well, if that's it, I'm fine with that because Klinger couldn't get out of the Army trying to get a Section 9 on that one. So I just really feel like if you have a dysphoria that bad that you think you're something you're not, that's a problem when you get out there. But it's a slippery slope, and I don't know if that one's going to pass.
Yeah, I don't think that there's any effort in the administration to have gay people not serve. I don't know if there's anything on that, but I do know that there's been some efforts about having the federal military funded gender reassignment surgeries.
Yeah,
and I certainly don't think that. Yeah, I don't think that we're under the taxpayers any obligation to fund gender reassignment surgeries for members of the military. I think that's a pretty easy one.
Yeah,
so.
that's easy. Plus, we have women who are joining the military to get boob jobs, which is ridiculous.
Yeah,
too.
Exactly. Same thing. Right. That shouldn't happen. Exactly. It's a medical necessity.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, yeah. So we'll see. But again, generally, we'll see what the takeaway here is. Hundreds of these cases that are. I don't want to say hundreds. Excuse me. Probably dozens at least. Maybe hundreds. It's really hard to keep track of how many there are. There's virtually every executive action is challenged in some regard. So, but we're doing our best. I think there's going to be some good takeaways. Will be that the presidential power to manage the executive branch is going to be affirmed. I think also immigration is probably going to be a net win. That what the courts are going to say, look, under the statutes, under the presidential authority, you have the deference to control who comes into this country and who doesn't come into this country and who leaves this country. That's a strictly executive function, so we're going to defer to your powers there. The appropriations cases, I think, are going to be probably a mixed bag. Those are the cases where the president's cutting funding for USAID or cutting funding for NPR, for example. That kind of crosses into whether Congress has made a specific appropriation or not.
Yeah, so we'll see. It's all coming out in the wash. Mike O'Neill, Vice President, Legal Affairs at Landmark Legal Foundation. Go to their website, help them out. They need your help paying the bills. Mike, thank you.
Thank you, Vaughn. Have a great day.
You too. Bye-bye.